Okay, this is section D2, resilience in sport. So resilience is something that you want to encourage in your athletes and even in schools, I think. And what it is an internal force. So it's something that's driven from within yourself that helps you overcome adversity. And what that means is overcome problems and obstacles that are put in your way when you're trying to achieve a task. So if you are trying to get into the regional level of competition, and the obstacles could be that your coach doesn't believe that you can do it, you're not training enough, or your name isn't known and you think that other people that are going to the regional will know who they are because they're in the right clubs and you're not able to go to that club. So it's an internal drive, despite those things, to try and find strategies to get around them to succeed. So it's really, really important. It's important in sport, it's really important in business and in life as well. And that resilience means that you're less affected by the emotions that you can get when things go wrong, for example. So that is the definition up here. Examples of adversity that you would be struggling with if you were an athlete could be injury and illness, where you're out for 6 months and everyone else seems to be improving apart from you. A plateau in learning, so that means, and in performance, it means that you're just not getting any better. You keep trying, you're going to training, you're working really hard, but you don't seem to be improving at the same rate as other people. That can be due to hundreds of reasons, like fatigue, for example, where you actually need to rest in order to start getting better. But they're learning and performance plateaus nevertheless. Burnout, where you're fatigued and you're not physically able to keep improving. And possible transitions if you've just moved to a new team and you're getting to know everyone. And everyone else interacts possibly better than you do, so your skill looks like it's come to a stop or a standstill, but in actual fact you just need to work on your cohesion and interaction with a new team, or possibly a new position within the same team, or even a new team. So they're examples of adversity, so obstacles that you can reach. All athletes experience adversity at some point, and how they deal with that affects their future success. If they can deal with it, if they are resilient, then they're more likely to be successful. If you are not resilient and you are quite emotional in response to these setbacks, or feel that it's not making any difference no matter what you do, we're referring back to that fixed mindset of failure, and your task persistence will reduce, your effort levels will reduce, and therefore it will have a detrimental effect on your performance. So I've just done that bit as well. They can lead to a negative mindset or attitude. I put the word attitude in because I think it helps describe what we're talking about, but the word that the BTEC book is using and repeating, please, is mindset, if we can stick with that. So how do you develop resilience? Well, most of that is going to be in section F that we're going to move on to afterwards. But how they suggest is coping strategies, and those coping strategies, a couple of examples from section F will be goal setting. So your realistic goals, challenging goals, achievable goals, measured goals, so you can see progress. And if you can see progress, even if you're really stuck on something, if you can see that you were stuck before on a different problem and you overcame it, so you've recorded it, you're looking back and you've shown that progress, and you doing the same method this time round, it's going to give you more confidence that you can overcome that issue, that adversity, and therefore you become more resilient. So coping strategies like goal setting. The second one is positive self-talk. So that means that, like this second part, focus on positive outcomes, you come off and attribute your successes and your failures to the right things, thinking about the attribution theory, and you're taking any positive you can. So even if you got absolutely hammered in the game, completely slaughtered, you try to focus on how you as an individual has improved. So were you able to do a roll-off at the centre twice successfully despite the fact that the team lost, etc. So you're trying to find the positives and work on that. Identifying personal coping resources. So if you have any areas of strength, and really focus on those to make you feel even stronger and more confident to overcome those things. And use social influences like family, friends and the coach, talk to them on a frequent basis, interact with other people to get that support from them. Because I think the saying is a problem shared is a problem halved, but that's what that's basically getting at, that if you talk through it with people, you'll realise that actually it's not that big of a problem. Other people have been through it, other people have got through it, and you can as well. So that's how you develop the resilience. And that's a very small section, but that is resilience in a nutshell. So now we're going to move on to perfectionism. So perfectionism, it's shown when an individual seeks a perfect performance as well as just winning. So they want success, but they also want to perform amazingly the whole way through. They don't want to make mistakes. So even if they end up winning a game, if they made a mistake and gave the ball away at some point during the game, that's what they tend to focus on and worry about and are concerned about. So they set themselves very high standards, and these high standards are often quite unrealistic in terms of not missing an interception in the whole of a match. It would be lovely if a defender could do that. They get an opportunity to intercept and they make every single one perfectly. But is it realistic? No, it's not, because you can't tell what other people are going to do. You don't know what the opposition is going to be like, how good they're going to be, the position of them, etc., and how good the throw's going to be. So it often then can be somebody else making the mistake that makes it feel like this person who's seeking perfectionism has actually failed, when it was the pass that was wrong, not their interception. They have an expectation, or this very high standard, this very high expectation. They hope that other people will live up to it and work to those expectations. So, for example, if they're training 5 hours a week for a match on a Saturday, they can be quite upset when other people don't do exactly the same, regardless of what their social calendar is like, what their work commitments are, what the family commitments are. They expect everybody to work as hard as them. It's almost like they're in their little box and that's what they want, and they can see that they can achieve it in that way, and they think, well, that's the way I can achieve it, then if you just do the same, you can achieve it too. So it's not particularly healthy. If you are striving for perfectionism, then it's likely that you will also suffer with a high level of trait anxiety. So that was the nervousness, the apprehension that you approach just in general. It was something you were born with, quite innate, doesn't really change, and you approach every topic with that. And it's often found that these people who do seek perfectionism, who do have these unrealistically high standards and expectations of themselves and of others for that perfect performance, they actually tend to suffer with high levels of trait anxiety if we were to test them. Okay, the final part then is the difference in characteristics between functional perfectionism and dysfunctional, and then we'll talk about the results of that and what you need to do to try and put that back into a workable situation, because it can dysfunctional perfectionism can be quite detrimental to performance and self-worth, etc. So functional perfectionism, first of all, is more positive. It is setting high personal targets that are more achievable, I suppose. They desire, or people who have functional perfectionism desire organisation in their life in general. They're persistent when they're trying to achieve their goals, and they strive and drive for that perfect performance. That's their aim. They can contribute, or these areas here that we've mentioned, the setting the high personal targets and organisation and persistence, they can contribute to commitment for high standards. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. It becomes bad when it's taken a little bit too far on the dysfunctional side here, and it's mainly negative. It focuses more on the mistakes that people have made as opposed to the things that they have done right. They're concerned with other people's judgments of them and their expectations and criticism. So if you imagine what they're coming off the pitch and thinking, what is my coach thinking about me? What is my mum or dad thinking about my performance? And they're thinking of that in a negative way because they're thinking other people are looking down on them. So therefore, they have a high level of self-doubt about their actions anyway, and this is exacerbated by the perception that these other people are making judgments about them and have equally high expectations than they have themselves. So they're thinking, well, if I'm doubting myself and I don't think it went very well, they're not going to think it went very well either. And this all sort of tumbleweeds in terms of anxiety and stress. They do believe that people, the expectations they have of themselves, will be held by other people as well. They automatically feel that other people have the same expectations of them that they have of themselves. So as soon as they fail or don't achieve, which is every single time, because no matter what they do, there's always going to be something wrong with their performance, they're thinking that other people are thinking like that as well, which is often not the case. It leads to an increase in cognitive state anxiety and somatic state anxiety. So whereas with this functional, it contributes to a commitment, so task persistence and effort to achieve these high standards, the dysfunctional, when it's more negatively based, leads to an increase in cognitive anxiety and somatic. So cognitive being your worries, apprehension, and somatic being your sweating and your shaking. And obviously we know that that now leads to a deterioration in performance because of attentional narrowing and physically affecting your skill because of the somatic ones. They say that you tend to be motivated more by a fear that you're going to do it wrong than a drive to get it right. A fear that you don't want to be embarrassed because other people are going to make judgments about you, as opposed to being successful and trying your hardest and being praised for things like that. You're just like, oh, I just don't want them to see me get it wrong. This constant thought of negativity and I can't do it, I'm not going to be able to do it, people are going to laugh at me, people are going to look at me and think, oh my God, they're terrible, they're useless. This is going to manifest itself and possibly present anger in your performances. So it could mean that this attentional narrowing is impacted more, you make mistakes, and then when you are called up on it, you throw your racket in a fit of rage, or you kick somebody, or you just give up and shout at people. But this can be at your own and others' mistakes. And I don't know why, I was just started thinking about The Apprentice then, how they're always just blaming each other. It's never their fault and it's always somebody else's fault. But this is a possible characteristic of what could happen if they've got this negative perfectionism mindset. So obviously this needs to be addressed. It needs to be addressed by the coach or by the person themselves, and that link between performance and self-worth needs to be broken. So by that I mean they need to, just because you've made a mistake doesn't mean to say that you're worth nothing. It shouldn't lower your self-esteem. You should be looking at the positives of what you've done right and how you can improve, and trying to word it differently, trying to show the positives rather than dwelling on the negatives, and talk about how much impact they've actually had on the game. So yeah, they made a mistake, but have you looked at the impact that you did have on the game? So for example, in netball, in year 7 particularly, people, defenders will be like, oh, they got so many goals in, it was terrible. I wasn't stopping any goals. Every time a person had the ball, they scored. And I was like, yeah, but how many times did they get the ball? Oh, I think they did 3 goals. So let's look at the times that you stopped them getting the ball and they didn't even get to take a shot, or you stopped them even coming into the shooting circle so they couldn't get it. So let's look at that as a positive and try to put a different slant on it. So the coach also needs to reduce, or it should reduce, if you break this link between the performance and the self-worth, it should reduce the irrational sense of importance that they place. And it is irrational because it's not possible. You cannot be perfect all of the time. And even if you are not perfect, you are still achieving something. You're still making a difference. It's still important, and it's getting to see that and understand it, rather than this completely unrealistic, irrational thought that, I've just got to work harder and then it will be absolutely perfect. And that is about it. So that's your perfectionism. So if you go and do your check for understanding, and we will move on to section E.